Hello, everyone. Wade Walker here. 10 o'clock here Pacific time. We're going to start our presentation here on modernizing your phone system with Microsoft Teams Phone. I'm going to do a quick little sound check, so to speak. Chuck, Lindsay, Austin, can you see my screen just fine?
Yeah.
Can.
Okay. Yep.
We can hear you just fine.
Oh, that's great. So I can be heard and I can be seen. So again, thanks to everybody for joining us today on our webinar on the Microsoft Teams Phone. We've got myself here, Wade Walker, VP of Cloud Services at Big Green. We also have two of our Microsoft experts and account managers, Lindsay Cowan and Austin Kelly, joining us. You're going to hear from all three of us during the presentation, so enjoy hearing from all three of us. During this presentation, please don't hesitate to ask any questions. We love to have a interactive dialogue during these presentations, and that way we can discuss topics that are pertinent to you and everybody else. And more than likely, if you have a question, somebody else in the audience has the same question. There's been a lot of activity around Microsoft Teams and the Teams Phone product, and we've got quite a number of clients that have migrated to it, ourselves included. We moved to it in 2017, 2018 timeframe. And it's becoming a very, very popular product for our client base. I'm going to click to the next slide here. And Chuck, Austin, Lindsay, did that go to the next slide just fine?
Yes, it did.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm asking these questions, everybody, because my laptop's a little sluggish. I've got a replacement on order due to failed hard drive, but because of the fund supply chain, it's been delayed for months. And I'm also a little bit under the weather, so if my voice sounds raspy like I was singing at a bar last night, it's I wasn't. I wish I was, but it's a little just a little under the weather here. Today's agenda: three of us will be talking about the Teams Phone system. We'll be talking about features of the system, giving a high level of Teams Phone first. Talk about devices. That's usually a very popular topic, is what devices actually work with the phone systems. Licensing, also a very popular topic. We'll discuss next steps and a Q&A wrap-up. And some of the questions that come in, we might wait to discuss them at the end, because we might have some slides in the appendix at the end of the slide deck that address them. And also, please note that you will be receiving a copy of the slides in PDF format. We send that out typically the next day. So if you see a link in the slides or some notes, don't try to feverishly or quickly write it down or screenshot it, because you'll be getting the slide deck. In addition, at the end, you'll have contact information for all of us. You saw our email address in the first slide, and then you can connect to us also on LinkedIn. Big Green IT, we focus on the Microsoft Cloud ecosystem. This presentation, again, is on Teams Phone, so we've highlighted that in our Microsoft ecosystem graphic. We've got many clients that are moving to the cloud. Some move at a rapid pace because they want to be 100% in the cloud. They'll move to Teams Phone, Azure Virtual Desktop, Exchange Online, SharePoint, the list goes on. Some go really slow, just one workload, one system at a time. So we completely understand that, and we help you get to move to your cloud journey on your terms. We've got our experts here on this presentation, and our engineers and support team are better experts in all these products, and we help deploy them, support them, and then keep them secure and keep everything going, and then connected to any other systems that you need them connected to. Jumping into the telephone industry, for those of you like me who used to use PBXs and on-premise stuff, you're very accustomed to on-premise phone systems, separate voicemail systems, music on hold, all of that fun stuff that would be punched down somewhere or on a server or wherever it is. If you're in hospitality industry like restaurants, you've got a phone system and voicemail in every single restaurant somewhere in some back room. In today's world, we're seeing a lot more people move their phone system from their on-premise environment to the cloud. And with the cloud, you get the ability to not have all of these phone systems in offices. Therefore, if there's a power outage, you don't have to worry about it. Your phone system stays online. Pretty easy to manage the phone systems online, a lot more difficult when they're on premise. Oftentimes you have to be physically connected to the system in and of itself. Makes it much easier to manage in the cloud, and the price point's much lower in the cloud than it is for phone systems. Years ago when I was doing phone systems, it was always a 5-figure, 6-figure project to do things. Now it's a much more affordable solution, and then way easier to get phone services out to people on any device they have, or their laptop or their iPhone or Android. So a much more flexible phone system in today's world. Microsoft Teams is a trusted leader in the unified communication space, the phone space. Unified communications, for those that haven't heard this term, it's a newer term and talks about voice and the ability of things like voicemail to be delivered to your inbox, voice to text and text to voice, and all those other types of communication mediums. Teams has over 250 million active users per month. That's quite a lot. So hundreds of millions of users using Teams, the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, and then a lot of them using Teams Voice for their voice solution. A lot of collaboration then with Teams, 30 billion collaboration minutes in a day. So there's a very robust ecosystem, a very strong product. And Teams is also a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. As you can see here from 2021, so just last year, Gartner published their typical Magic Quadrant. And if you're familiar with this, or if you're not familiar with this, the verbiage is you always want to be in the upper right. And as you can see here, Microsoft's up there in the upper right, which talks about Teams being a leader here in unified communications. There's other well-known companies up there as well. And it's pretty impressive that Microsoft got to this point. I remember in 2017, which is just 5 years ago, and it was actually around this time of the year, it was spring. Some critical features came out. Auto attendant, hey, thank you for calling Big Green IT. Please press 1 for sales, 2 for technical support. Things like that. And then the call routing and call queues, they were released back in 2017 timeframe, and that's when a lot of us then really decided to move our phone systems towards Teams, because it had all of the key features that were critical to any business. So for a product that's relatively young, it's become very mature and has become a leader in phone systems. I've administered many of these other phone systems in my past, and it's hard for me to believe sometimes that I would have everything in Teams for relatively a younger product, but it's very mature. Well, we use it every day. So many of our clients use it every day. And for somebody who administered these systems for years, I love using Teams. It's easy to use, flexible to be used on any device, and very, very straightforward to administer in the Teams Admin Center. Next here, we're going to hit on some features. And then after we get through the features, then Lindsay's going to take over to talk about devices. Devices is a very popular topic. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat window. Austin's monitoring that, or the questions window. But before we get there, some features. No surprise, Teams is administered in the Teams Admin Center within the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So just like there's an Exchange Online Admin Center, there's a SharePoint Admin Center, there's a Teams Admin Center. We've got a screenshot here of a sample Microsoft 365 tenant running Teams Voice. The nice thing about having it in the Admin Center is that single pane of glass that Microsoft talks about. You open up your browser, you might have multiple tabs like I do, but you have your single pane there with a tab likely dedicated to your Teams Admin Center. So it makes it easier to train your help desk team, your telco team, your network administrator team, or whatever team it is, to go into the Teams Admin Center, give numbers to an employee, have calls routed to them, add them to a call queue or hunt group or things like that. Again, as the slide mentions, you don't have to worry about an on-premise PBX. Teams Phone is actually the name of the product that is the PBX product. It used to be called, I think, Teams Phone PBX or something in the past, but it really is your phone system. And then your phone system here can scale just by adding new users. So maybe you hire more people or acquire a company, you add them in here, assign them a phone number. You can port the numbers over from your existing phone system. For those of us that have done porting forever, it used to be extremely complex. It's in the Teams Admin Center. It's kind of almost wizard based, where you get the phone numbers that you want to port over. You start the process, they get ported over, and then when they're in the Teams Admin Center, then you can assign them to the users. In the meantime, each user can have like what we call a temporary phone number. So you get phone numbers with the Teams phone system, and John Doe, Jane Doe can have a temporary number until their main DID phone number is ported over into the Teams Admin Center. So very easy to administer in here, including all the call center settings. If you've got a call center with agents and time of day routing and things like that, everything gets administered here in the Teams Admin Center. Austin, any questions about the Teams Admin Center or anything like this so far?
No questions regarding the admin center. We do have some questions about other providers, but I think we might want to wait until we get into that a little later. Up to you, Wade.
Perfect. Yeah, we have a slide on that coming up. So
Perfect.
We'll get there in a second, or in a few slides here. I know this is a busy slide. I got this from Microsoft, but it lists all the calling features and admin features. We're not going to go through all of them, I promise, but I like to put this in here so that everyone can have this in the PDF, and you can see a high-level list of the calling features, your typical calling, call forwarding, call parking, ANI, caller ID, presence, your status, recording if you need to, conferencing for people. On the right here to admin, again, admin all of this stuff, and multi-site support, and there's call logs and call analytics, and no surprise, there's a Power BI app to do advanced call analysis and metrics and planning. So rich set of features. We get a lot of questions on the auto attendant and call queue, so I put this slide in here. So you can have various different auto attendants and call queues with custom greetings and menus. You can have your own voices if you've got voice talent that you want to record and put that voice talent. I used to work at a company where a lady used to do sun-kissed orange juice commercials. So she was our voice talent, and we did all of our recordings with her. If not, there's voice people's voices already built into Teams. In your call queues, custom greetings, your typical music on hold, routing to agents. You can go by skill, you can go by round robin, you can go by quite a few different call queue and call routing strategies based on your staffing, and then people can leave voicemails in the call queues, so on and so forth. Innovation here in Teams Phone. Listen, some highlights. What's some of the things that have occurred in the past 2 years. During the pandemic, we saw a lot of people move to Teams Phone as they were leaving their offices and therefore leaving their PBX and voicemails because they were at the office. So a lot of things were added in 2020. A lot more features here added also in 2021. Big one was Operator Connect, to do some of those third-party Operator Connect solutions. Apple CarPlay, I use it all the time. So now that I'm traveling again, yay, I get to travel. I will frequently have my iPhone connected into the rental car, and then use Apple CarPlay with Teams, with my music apps, with my GPS driving apps, and then I'll have Teams in there as well. So big fan of the fact of Apple CarPlay. Walkie-talkie is kind of cool. So some walkie-talkie features. And then for additional features, and I've got a link to this. This is the Microsoft 365 roadmap page. I took a screenshot of this last night and put it in here. I just did a search for phone for Microsoft Teams, and again, the link is in here. So if at the end of this slide deck, so if you're ever interested in seeing what's on the roadmap for Teams or any other Microsoft product, you can go to this roadmap page here and type in some things. And so you can see here some of the top things in preview, call control with Bluetooth headsets, Teams device management, Exchange contacts available and calling pickers. And if it's in preview, on the right there, you can see some things that are in preview. And then if it's going to go GA, general availability, those are the general availability dates. And then please note when something goes GA, general availability, it can take a little bit of time to roll out to every single Microsoft 365 tenant worldwide. So when it says June, May, or whatever, it might take a few weeks or months sometimes to get everything rolled out. So don't hesitate to ask us any questions about that, because we can help find out if it's in your tenant or in your region. But I wanted to put this website here so you could see where Microsoft is on their roadmap for these products. This next slide, if you look, it's actually an interactive slide. It shows what's going on. We get a lot of people who are using Teams and they don't see the call feature. If you look in the left there, there's a call icon. If you don't have the phone system license, you actually won't see that icon. But I like putting this in presentations and showing to people, because you can see here in this slide here that there is a calls feature. You can dial a number, so you can actually literally just type in a phone number. Oftentimes you just click on somebody's face and click on the icon, just like we do for most things in life. Social media, your iPhone, your Android, you're not really calling phone numbers as much. I used to memorize everybody's phone number when I was a kid. Like, I knew everybody's phone number. And now I don't even think I know my kids' phone numbers, because they're just in my iPhone and I click on their face and it dials. Teams is the same way. You click on the person and the icon, or you just type in the number there, and then it dials, and it's like any other phone. And I have the Teams app on my iPhone, so I routinely use it on the iPhone. If a call comes to me on my Teams app, I know it's a business call. It comes on my native iPhone app, I know it's typically a personal call. And I also have the Teams app on my Surface laptop, so I'm using that routinely and talking with Lindsay or Austin or anybody else at Big Green or any of our customers or partners. So I'm literally in Teams probably for either calling or collaboration, probably 90% of my day is in Teams. And so having the phone system built into Teams is just kind of awesome, because that's what it's the tool I use probably more than anything else, along with Outlook, Power BI reports, and things like that. So next we're going to hand off here to Lindsay. She's going to start talking about devices. So Lindsay, let's see if we can hear you again.
Yeah, can you hear me, Wade?
Yes, can hear you fine.
Perfect. And before we jump into devices, there have been a couple of questions in chat asking about the Teams phone system versus other voice over IP vendors and why Teams is a leader. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, we don't really have any slides on that to point to compare like Teams with Ring Central, Grasshopper, 8x8. We don't have those in this presentation. But in general, we get that question a lot, especially clients looking at multiple solutions. Teams have the way Microsoft has focused on this is Microsoft has put the most popular products that are demanded from the client base into the solution. So when we do a bake-off to compare Teams versus some other vendor, we'll notice that Teams has darn near every single feature that somebody's asked for. If there isn't a feature in there, there's typically a third-party solution we can bring in to add to that. So that's we don't see a lot of people choose other solutions in our calls when we're looking at Teams versus those other products. I've administered all those other products. They're great, no knock on them. But Teams has, the core features that they do, and then with the call center and routing and things like that, it's good comparison between both of them, and Teams usually wins out. Price becomes a big factor for a lot of companies. Teams, we'll get on licensing here a little bit later. Teams has a set price, and it includes all of the sales tax and FCC taxes. So if you look at your bill for any other product, you'll have your monthly fee plus all of your excise use tax and sales tax and FCC tax and things like that. Those are all baked into the Teams price. And since Teams is then also tightly integrated with the other Microsoft 365 products, such as email and SharePoint and files, that collaboration aspect is huge, because you're using the same user ID and password to log into email, access your files, get your phones, get your calls. So for your end users, there's not a lot of training that needs to go on, or other user IDs and passwords to remember, because it's one system. And then from an administration standpoint, you're administering it in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center instead of some other admin center for another product. And then from a billing standpoint, it comes in your monthly invoice with the other Microsoft 365 products. So when we go through that discussion, it's amazing how it becomes so simplified that Teams is a component of Microsoft 365, easy to train on, use, single sign-on basically with one user ID and password to all those services, and those features those are usually the key reasons why companies end up choosing the Teams phone system.
And I just have to add, from an end user perspective, just having that single pane. I know a lot of organizations, everyone's using Teams for chat, file sharing. And if you're already using Teams, having the phone capabilities right there is just extremely easy to use and navigate. You don't have to deal with any additional systems. It's all just in one place.
I agree.
Yeah, thanks for adding that, Lindsay. And before we move on to the devices, and while we're still sort of on the features, I just wanted to bring up HIPAA compliance. Somebody asked if Teams is HIPAA compliant, and just seeing if either Wade, you or Lindsay can address that.
On the Microsoft 365, the answer is yes. On the Microsoft 365 Trust Center, there is a BAA that Microsoft has that we then send over to our clients that need a BAA in regards to HIPAA. Everything in Office 365, Microsoft 365 is encrypted. So all data at rest is encrypted, and that's usually a big aspect of HIPAA. For other compliance aspects, companies do choose their compliance posture and their security posture. I used to run IT at healthcare companies, so I've been through a whole bunch of HIPAA compliance audits, and companies I run will be highly strong compliance posture. Some will have a lighter one, so it really depends on what your compliance really depends on your organization. But the Microsoft 365 cloud in and of itself is HIPAA compliant. There's also something called Compliance Manager in Microsoft 365, where you can run a HIPAA compliance template against everything in Microsoft 365, and that template then has an output of actions and activities to make yourself more HIPAA compliant. Encryption's always one of them. Data is encrypted. Multi-factor authentication is always a component of that. And then, searching paying attention to logs and all the other aspects. So that's something we can discuss at a follow-up call. But yes, it's compliant, and you can add, you can increase your compliance posture on Teams and the entire Microsoft 365 platform using Compliance Manager with the HIPAA template.
Perfect.
This is Chuck. We do have quite a few questions stacking up here. Do you want to wait until the end of this to answer these, or do you want me to ask a few of them now?
Let's get to the end here. We've got, I know we do want to get to these questions. I do want to give Lindsay time here to talk about devices and licenses. We don't have a whole lot of slides remaining, so let's have Lindsay go through the next handful of slides, and then we can answer those questions. If we do run up a time at the end of the hour here for any of the questions that we don't have time to answer, we can schedule follow-up meetings to answer those questions. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, Lindsay.
Perfect. So, as we mentioned, Teams Phone is great because it's all done within the system you're used to before. So you can see on this screen there, you can use the soft phone on the desktop application. You can use the mobile application on your cell phone. And then there are also devices. So you're really not locked down to a specific location. Your users can access their work calls literally from anywhere. You don't need to be tied to a desk or tied to a specific location. Just keep in mind it is VoIP, so voice over IP. It has a really, really reliable network, great call quality, but it is important that you do have an internet connection because that is how the networking on the back end works. So voice over IP is voice over internet protocol, of course. And then you, of course, also have access to manage everything right from the Microsoft admin portal, which is, again, another tool that many of you are very familiar with, and it's all done within that one system. We'll go to the next slide. So there are several different options for Teams compatible devices. So we like to break this down into personal devices and shared devices. So personal devices include headsets, desk phones, mobile phone stations, speaker pucks, mobile phone, PC. So these are all ways in which individual users can make and receive calls. And then we also have shared devices. So that would include like common area phones, conference room phones, Teams room phones, so meeting room solutions, and then large screen collaboration devices, much like the hub. So if you want to see a full list of Teams compatible devices, the link is right up there, office.com/Teams devices. So at Big Green IT, we partner with a vendor called Yealink. We find that Yealink has really robust and forward-thinking hardware solutions that are Teams compatible. So you can see that there are quite a few actually different options. So if you're looking at desk phones, some of these are USB, some are PoE, some of them have video calling right there, Android interfaces. So there's a lot of different options, and we find that most organizations have different needs for different levels of employees. So a receptionist would need a different type of phone than a manager, an executive. They really like to have more feature-friendly devices. So we can dive into the details, but you can see that there are a variety of different desk phones depending on job-specific needs. You'll also see that there is a conference speakerphone listed under desk phones as well. There's also Microsoft Teams Room on Windows. So those are full meeting room devices with touch screens, cameras, speakers, sound bars. So depending on the size of the meeting room you're looking to equip, there are different options. We do a great job of working and partnering with Yealink on creating custom solutions based on organizational needs. So we've worked with clients who give us, specs and blueprints of the rooms and tell us, what they're looking to accomplish, and we can put together a solution that will assist with making sure that your room is fully equipped with all the meeting room capabilities. They've come out with a lot of cool tools. So if, for example, you're in a room with 15 guests at a table, the camera will focus on the speaker itself. There's also a follow feature. So if someone gets up and starts walking around the room, the cameras can then follow you. You'll also see that there's Microsoft Teams Room on Android. So the devices on that second row there are Windows specific devices, but there are Android options available as well. And then Yealink does also offer a variety of cameras, speaker phones for conference rooms, and a lot of headsets. A lot of our clients will utilize headsets where their employees will use the soft phone capabilities within the Microsoft Teams application on the desktop, but use the headset, of course, so they have the full sound, no disruptions. So it tends to work great for a lot of organizations that don't have devices that would be compatible with Teams or could be compatible via SIP gateway and don't want to purchase all new devices.
And Lindsay, I'm talking on the bottom right, like a headset very similar to that that's built into a newer product called the WH67. You're using that same product, right?
I am, and the WH67 is awesome. So it is an Android interface. So it's a touch screen module with a little spot where you can hang up your headset itself, but it has Teams on there. So it can actually act as a standalone device, or you can, of course, daisy chain it with your computer and use it whether you're on the computer desktop application. You can also use it as a standalone.
Very cool.
So I know we also had questions in chat about using some legacy devices. So within the past year, Microsoft released what's called the SIP gateway, where you can actually use some Cisco, Poly, Yealink, and Audio Code's SIP phones. So for example, the Polycom VVX series, you can actually still use those devices. Well, it is compatible and you can make it work. The really great things about Teams compatible specific devices is that there's a lot more functionality. So you can view presence, you can join Teams meetings right from the device itself. So while you do have options to ensure that existing devices are compatible, we do always suggest Teams-centric devices, but we can make legacy systems work. We can go ahead and go to the next slide here. Any questions specific to devices before we hop into the licensing side of things?
Yes. So Stephanie asks, do the Yealink devices they have, which is the T425 and T420, do those work with Teams?
Yeah, we can double check, and on this deck, the link to the list of compatible devices via SIP gateway is on there. So off the top of my head, the exact make and model I'm unsure of, but in the link that you'll get in this recording presentation, it will have the details as to whether they are compatible or not.
Yep. Thanks, Lindsay. And I think it may have been on the last slide, but yeah, we'll be sure to send this out afterwards. So the attendees can reference that.
It was on the last slide, and those model numbers she mentioned should work according to the last slide.
Perfect. There it is. I'll move now forward to licensing for you, Lindsay.
Awesome. So in order to utilize Teams phone system in the calling plan, your users do need to have a base M365 license. So any license that has Microsoft Teams. So on this chart here, you'll see that there's Microsoft 365. Teams and audio conferencing is included in the full M365 suite. So whether that be M365 Business Basic, Standard, Premium, M365 E3, E5. So you're getting Microsoft Teams, which is the application itself, and the audio conferencing, which is a dial-in bridge to Teams meetings with that licensing. And in order to unlock the phone capabilities, you'd need to add on phone system. So you'll see here there's the cloud PBX. And then on the right-hand side, it says Teams phone with calling plan. So that is the license itself. Now it's important that you can purchase phone system as a standalone if you do want to use another service provider. So you can utilize Microsoft for the phone system, but the service itself through another provider. But many of our clients will actually just use the Teams phone with calling plan. So that includes the PBX system itself and then the calling plan. So Wade, let's go ahead and go to the next slide and we can dive a bit deeper into the calling plan and what's included in this license type. So as I mentioned, Microsoft Teams phone with calling plan, $15 per user per month. The amazing thing about Microsoft is that this price is inclusive of all taxes and fees. We've worked with clients whose taxes with their previous providers were almost as much as the service itself. It's all location based, of course, but this does include all state, local, federal taxes, E911 fees. So it's priced very, very competitively. The thing to note is that this is the calling plan includes 3,000 minutes per user per month within the US and Canada. Those minutes are pooled across the tenant. So you take the number of users that you have licensed, multiply that by 3,000, and the organization shares that bucket of minutes. I know we also had another question earlier about international calls. So there are a couple of options. There are calling plans specific to international calling. You'd then need to identify the specific users that would need that type of calling plan. The other option is just putting a card on file, and depending on the country that you're dialing, there is cent per minute charge. And so that would just be based off of consumption. We have some organizations where they don't make a ton of international calls, but all their users do every once in a while. And so utilizing the card on file works better than paying a higher price per user per month, because again, they're only being charged for those calls that they're actually making. However, you'd have to do a comparison based on, again, the country that you're dialing and the amount of minutes you're spending on the phone, because in most cases, an international calling plan may be beneficial. So in terms of next steps, I know there have been a ton of questions and we've been seeing a lot of interest around Teams phone system. So if you'd like to learn more, discuss your specific needs rather than just an overview as we're going over today, you can send an email to sales@biggreenit.com and we can send you more information. Of course, when we're sending out this recording and deck, we'll include some additional details as well that you can share with other members of your team. But we'd love to speak with you. We're seeing a lot of interest in this product. And as Wade mentioned, we're using it internally. I absolutely love it. So we can give you more of a hands-on guide to your needs and next steps from there. We do also provide the technical support that organizations need for Teams Voice. So we have a couple of different options dependent upon your needs. So our standard support is our most basic level of support. And you can see there's also premium support, enterprise support. The premium and enterprise support do also include some features with assessments, usage reports, assistance when it comes to hardware as well. So again, we do suggest moving forward with at least one of these plans when you are doing voice with us, but we can discuss again your specific organizational needs one-on-one. We've also included some relevant links based on some of these slides on here, so you can view the Gartner Magic Quadrant, which again will provide you really great insights and comparisons on the Teams voice solution versus other voice over IP providers. We have the link to the roadmap, devices. Here's the link for the SIP gateways to identify if your legacy devices are compatible. And then some other relevant links here with additional information. So these will all be available in the deck. So from there, we'll go ahead and address some of these questions.
Yeah, Lindsay, this is Chuck. I've been kind of tracking these, so I'll go ahead and I guess ask the question, and then if you, Wade, or Austin can answer it, that would be great. And so the first question is: we are a medical facility. How does Teams deal with paging, zone paging, etc.?
Great question. And we can dive into that. I know that touches a little bit on features. The one thing that we didn't dive into, so right now, as it stands today, Microsoft's solution is voice only. So it does not include SMS, texting. Paging is a bit limited as well, but Microsoft is newer to the voice over IP space, and that's why the roadmap is extremely important to take a look at, because they are making constant improvements. So although a feature set may not be available today, it likely will in the near future. So paging specifically, there are hardware devices where you can make that work. But I wouldn't say Teams was built specifically to replace an entire intercom system itself. Another thing a lot of our clients use are contact center solutions. So there are third-party solutions that you can attach to the Teams phone system to have additional capabilities. So we can look into paging options if that's something that your team needs to have. We can definitely do some research and work with you on that.
Perfect. Okay, next question. Are there webhooks to initiate a phone call for a specified user?
Wade, did you want to touch on that one?
I'm looking at it now. Web. So almost everything in Office 365 has web hooks through PowerShell scripting or APIs. So let's take this one. We'll contact you separately, Jonathan, and see what you're looking to do. But yeah, darn near everything can be scripted in Microsoft 365 to either connecting as a user or route things. Back to the previous topic that Lindsay mentioned, we have a client on the East Coast that make cookies, really good cookies, Tate's Bake Shop, and we did paging devices for them for their different offices and stores using some PowerShell scripting, some webhooks, and some AT devices to do that. So there's lots of ways to do things that aren't necessarily documented in the feature set, but by using webhooks, PowerShell scripting, other solutions to find that answer. So we'll follow up with you and see what we're looking to, what's actually needed to be done here.
Perfect. Thanks, Wade.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
likely something that could also just be facilitated with another third-party application. So I know
Right.
a lot of webhooks will create custom callbacks like from a website. And so although that's not natively available in Teams, there are a lot of solutions out there to accommodate features that aren't yet quite available.
Okay. Is there an option for call recording?
There are call recording options. Again, there is a difference between the Teams phone solution and a full contact center solution. So depending on what you're needing those call recordings for, if it's for compliance issues, we can definitely discuss that.
Okay.
And related to call recording, like we record a lot of calls internally, especially when we're talking with clients. And the nice thing is, and they get the call gets recorded, it gets added to your Microsoft 365 environment, and then you can share it to people. And if it's a video conference, you can record that as well. So it depends on the recording needs, but sometimes there's in contact centers there's recording to train agents and things like that. So we can definitely just see where the what's needed and then how best to implement recordings.
Okay. How is the integration with CRM like Salesforce?
Wade, do you want me to take that one?
Go for it.
Okay, perfect. So it truly depends on your needs. Again, there are third-party solutions that can help. It also depends on the type of Salesforce licensing that you need and what you're looking to have included. Are you looking for call transcriptions to be delivered into CRM? Are you looking for call pops? So when someone calls, it pulls their caller ID from CRM. It really depends on what you're looking for, but again, typically facilitated through a third-party provider.
Okay. This just says SMDR ?
Are you familiar with SMDR, Lindsay? I'm not.
I am not either.
We'll research that and get back to you. We've been
Okay.
stumped. Woohoo! So yeah, so we'll research that and get back to you.
Next question, any way to lock down usage for users to a location?
So if I understand, Lindsay, go ahead if you want to answer that.
I think I might have had the same question you were going to ask, so go ahead, Wade.
Okay. In Microsoft 365, there are ways to lock down usage by location, by IP address. We have a particular client that only allows access to Office 365 by being actually in the building. So there's a lot of controls that can be put in place, but we should definitely follow up on this one because locking down by location can mean different things to different people. So we'll follow up and dig a little deeper into that one.
Jay also just asked a great question. He asked about licensing for phones that aren't specific to a user. So Microsoft does offer licensing options. There is a Teams room license. There is a common area phone license. So we work with a lot of organizations that do have lobby phones or a room or a phone in the break room, or again, the meeting room. You don't need to license those to a user. There are additional license options specific to devices rather than users.
Okay. Speech recognition in 14 languages. Can you explain how this works?
Wade, are you familiar with this? I believe it is specific to the voicemail transcription. So if someone is leaving a voicemail, it recognizes that. But Wade, am I correct when I say that?
That's my understanding as well, but let's research that one and get back because there's been a lot of progress there. Teams also has translation for like Teams messages, like text messages, where it'll translate to other languages. So there's a lot of that translation, and there's transcription as well, and a lot of progress in there recently. So let's get a little more information on what's needed, and so we can contact you and get back to answer that exactly in the right way.
Perfect.
Okay. Can you have like a receptionist phone for a main company number where the receptionist can forward to other team users or non-team users?
Absolutely. So again, that's one of the beauties of Teams. If the receptionist is trying to transfer to someone internally in the organization, they would just need to type in that user's name. It would show their presence and they can transfer it. And you can also transfer to external numbers. Some clients we work with will just set up extensions for their users. Some will just use that click to dial capabilities, but it is completely customizable based on how you would like your system set up.
Okay, then there's some questions about specific phones, models, and their integration with Teams calling. So obviously that link that we're providing will help you to get answers for those. The next question, will Teams devices work outside of Teams, such as listen to music, Zoom, meeting, etc.? I think, Wade, you mentioned something about that already.
The question was, will Teams devices work with non-Teams apps?
Teams devices, work outside of Teams, such as listening to music, Zoom meetings, etc.
I'm not aware of that. Do you know, like I have a Teams phone, a regular phone, and I have the headset, and what it has is it's an Android phone, basically. It's an Android device, basically, with a modified Teams app. I don't know if there's a way to add other apps to it. Lindsay, do you?
There isn't, and again, it's built to be a phone, right? So replacing a desk phone just with additional capabilities specific to Teams. But you can, of course, join a Zoom meeting. If you're dialing in a bridge, you can join it that way. There are Zoom specific devices. So keep in mind, these are Teams compatible. So Zoom does have specific devices if you're utilizing their voice service as well. But it is just meant to be a more robust version of a desk phone specific to Teams.
The best way to use other devices or other apps is basically your iPhone, your Android, and your laptop, and then listen to music that way. Have other apps on it. I know I've got Spotify and stuff on my iPhone and laptop, and so that's how I use that. But I think the Teams phone is locked down to just a pared down version of the Teams app, and that's it. And I'd say we get this question a lot too. I guess that for our client base, they might only buy Teams phones for 10, 15, 20% of their users who want a desk phone. The rest of the users mostly use the Teams app on their iPhone, Android, desktop, laptop. And then the Teams phone is either more of a headset, and it's important to know that these headsets are really enterprise-grade headsets and phones, so the noise cancellation is significant, the call quality is significant, call dropping is very rare on with these devices because they're really quite good devices, and you can actually tell a difference when somebody's on a Teams headset versus when they're on their iPhone with the earbuds, whatever they're called for the iPhone, or the white headphone set that plugs into the phone. There's a huge call quality difference when we go to these Teams devices, especially the headsets.
Okay. This is another Salesforce specific question. So, Salesforce has a soft phone widget bar. How is the integration?
Again, it is just specific needs, and the integration with Salesforce and Teams Voice is done through a variety of third-party solutions. And then,
Okay.
Chuck, I know that Jessa had a couple of questions. Jessa, I know you asked, do you need a desktop phone to use the Teams phone system on an iPhone, or just a desktop to use the whole Teams phone system? So anywhere that you can access the Teams application, you can use the phone system. So again, just by opening up the Teams application on your cell phone, you can use just the Teams application on the desktop. You can use just a desk phone. You don't need all of these different or any additional hardware. They are just options. So you can, again, have your system set up how you'd like your users to be accessing the system.
Okay. Do you have to pay per device with Teams?
So the licensing is done either per device or per user. So each user that needs like their own inbound and outbound calling capabilities will need the phone system and calling plan licensing. Again, if you have a common area phone, meeting room solution, conference room device, those are licensed by the device itself.
Okay, and I think that actually answers the next question. What do you do for licensing for phones that are not for a specific user, but more for department calls?
Yep. And I think that was Jay's question earlier that we were able to dive into. So I hope that answer previously helped.
Okay, let's see. We have 7 locations. Can all phones be replaced at the same time?
Great question. So no, we work with organizations that like to do a slower transition. So some locations will be done first, where we'll go through, set up that call flow setup, port the numbers at that specific location. Once that's been completed, move on to the next one. So it's not, an all at once type of thing. We can definitely work on a transition, especially if some of your locations are not ready to adopt the solution as soon as others.
Okay, and we have one question left. I didn't think we'd get through them all, but it looks like we're going to. Does Teams on iPhone only work on VoIP, or can it use cellular if needed?
Great question. So it is, again, VoIP specific. I know, for example, when I get calls that come through on my cell phone, the caller ID shows up, it shows it's a team call. I can still receive those calls, but in order to have the best call quality and to avoid dropped calls, disruptions, it is best to be connected to internet, but it doesn't need to be.
Okay.
And one way around that, like when I'm driving, sometimes I'll have no internet connectivity. So I'll just do a regular, phone call from my iPhone to a regular DID phone number. Then usually I get back into, somewhere with connectivity, whether it's, LTE, 4G, 5G, and then get back on the Teams call.
Perfect.
So
Well, I
that's
know
all.
we only have 1 minute left here. So appreciate everyone's time today. And again, we'll be sending out follow-up with a recording, the presentation, and then some additional details. And we would love to schedule time to have a one-on-one conversation for any of you that are interested in learning more or discussing next steps.
Yep. Thanks everybody for attending. We super appreciate you taking time out of your day. Chuck, anything else from an administrative standpoint?
Nothing except we will get that email out tomorrow, which will have a PDF of the slide deck, so you'll have access to all the slides, links, etc. And then there will also be a recording of this entire webinar that you can access as well.
And then we'll go through all the questions again. We'll review them again. And if we didn't answer your question, our apologies. There were quite a few questions, so thank you for being a very interactive group. And then if we didn't get to it or we need to get more information, like we mentioned, we'll follow up with you on your particular questions and interest.
May the 4th be with you all.
Yes, may the 4th be with you. So everybody have a great May 4th, like Austin just said. And thank you again for taking time out of your day. We're going to end this webinar here. And as Chuck mentioned, he'll send out the follow-ups, and then we'll also follow up on the questions and make sure we get those that we promised to follow up, do that. And if we miss any questions, our apologies. We'll follow up with you as well. So have a great 4th, everybody, or May 4th, I should say.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye, everyone.